think that one of the things we failed to understand with the collapse of the Soviet Union, we did not defeat the Soviet Union militarily, we defeated them economically. We had a strong economy here. And one of the countries that learned that lesson was China. And if we're not careful with the trade surplus that China has developed, you're going to see the largest blue water navy coming from China. And also, who is the one that holds most of our debt? We must get to be a country that is producing and manufacturing. Hiring Americans, that comes back to having the right and type of tax codes that support you and the right and type of regulations that don't strangle you, but give you the opportunity to expand your business. Because I believe in this thing called free trade, but there's also a thing out there called fair trade. And we must understand and recognize our enemies and realize that the United States of America is engaged in an economic war, and I do not want to see our small businessmen, and I do not want to see our country being lost in that economic war.
Thank you for the question. Thanks for being a local businessman who's working in this community. I don't know what about you, but when I grew up, we had companies like yours which created a product, had research and development. Down the hallway, they tested the product, and down the hallway, they manufactured it. And those were the good quality jobs that paid for mortgages and paid for families for years and years. And somehow along the way, our tax system said, yeah, we're going to give incentives for research and development, but the rest of the stuff we're not going to pay attention. That's where you have this differential. We now give tax incentives to companies to go overseas and for other countries through currency manipulation like China to get an advantage. That's wrong. I want to see those bottles, I don't care how low-tech that is, I want to see them produced here. I want to see people having jobs in this community, and I think that it can be done. I'm sure it's not as low-tech as being said done. You see, you're saying you agree. But the bottom line is we have to have a tax incentive system, we have to have a worker training program, we have people from our community colleges and universities, they have to gear toward the kinds of jobs that we can compete with right here in our community. We have to have economic incentives for people to go to school. I'm very proud of the fact we now have more Pell grants than other grants in the United States, and that's where we need to go to help train our workers.
Thank you, Congressman. Mr. Henderson.
Thank you. It's a great question. When I was in the Vietnam pipeline, I graduated from the University of Minnesota in accounting, and then there was a delay because the Vietnam War was over before I was to go to pilot training in the United States Air Force. So I took a temporary job in advanced packaging in Hopkins, Minnesota. And interestingly enough, we found at the Air Base, at Reese Air Force Base in Panhandle, Texas, that we could get a very advanced product down there called microwave popcorn. It was new on the street at that time. So it's a good business. But I want to relate one little story to you, the Styrofoam cup. That Styrofoam cup that you get on an airliner, I've lately seen that the coffee goes right through and it's dripping. And why is it dripping? Because it's made in China. I'm sorry. Folks, quality control starts in the United States of America. The Congress is responsible for those duties. My opponent's responsible for those duties. In every Congress, it goes for 2 years. It's time to get those duties set so there's fair trade in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. And given our time, we're now going to afford each candidate the opportunity for 2 minutes of closing remarks, starting with Lieutenant Colonel West.
Oh, well, thank you. You know, I'm sitting here today carrying on a legacy in the West family of service. My father served in World War II. My mother served 25 years civilian service with the Marine Corps headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. My older brother served in Vietnam, was wounded at Quezon. I served 22 years in the Army, and now my nephew is a captain, already with 2 tours of Afghanistan under his belt, serving as a captain, following my footsteps in the artillery. And it's all about one simple thing. We have got to have people that go to Washington, D.C., that understand 3 basic words: service, sacrifice, and commitment. Because before any of you ever knew me, I was answering a phone call that I would leave my wife and my children and go to protect your life, liberty, and your pursuit of happiness, which is what the Declaration of Independence states. So what I seek to do now is continue the oath that I took as an officer on the 31st of July, 1982, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. I took off a uniform. I put on a tie and a suit. Thank God my wife dresses me. But the same oath continues on. So that when you lay your head down at night, you will never have to worry about the right type of principles that made this country what it is in 234 years, because that's what I stand for. It's about restoring honor, integrity, and character to Washington, D.C. It is about having people there that understand that it is the principles of limited government and lower taxes, that we must restore a sense of individual responsibility and accountability in the United States of America. I will not live in a country where we have a government that wants to create more and more victims and making them dependent upon them so that they can have power. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge is very simple. If we allow government continue to have more and more Americans wedded to them by subsistence check or employment check, the United States of America, as we know it right now, is on the road to perdition. And I will not allow that to happen, not for my children, not for your children, and not for our grandchildren. I run for the United States Congress to represent you and be the voice that I've always been.
Thank you. Congressman Klein.
Thank you, and thank you again for having us today. It's a great opportunity for us all to hear from you and this to continue. As I said before, my wife and I moved to Florida 25 years ago. Our daughter's now 21 years old, but 22 actually. But the bottom line is this: we came here, and many of you were born here because this is the most wonderful place to live in the country. We've been through some really good times, and now we face some challenges, and we're all in this together. As a small businessman, I worked in a business that had over 65 employees. I met with and dealt with everyday issues like you did. I had to make payroll, health insurance, every battle you've had. I've been through this, and I understand what you're going through. What we need now is jobs. This is all about jobs. Jobs will cure a lot of the issues in this country, but we have to think collectively. I'm not one person that says, oh, the federal government's all bad, like some people do. There's problems. There has to be oversight. This notion of, oh, let Wall Street do what it did for all those years and destroy people's lives and homes, that's bad. But everyone has to take their own personal responsibility in this as well. So we have to do this together as public and private sector. With all due respect to my opponents, there are obviously different views on this. My opponent on the end just has a very harsh view of many things. And my position on all this is you have to work together. My strategy, since I've been doing this, and I've been in public service for 20 years now, is I believe you have to work with Democrats, Republicans, and independents. I work with our local marine industry, as I said, to help get rid of an unnecessary tax. I worked with Ileana Ross-Layton in Miami to help work on this Medicare fraud issue. She's a Republican. I've worked on the Homeowners Defense Act, which hopefully will help reduce our insurance. I've worked with our realtors in the community here who've been great supporters, and I appreciate that. But the bottom line is we have to work together. Rough edges and harsh talk are not going to create jobs. As a matter of fact, that attitude really doesn't work at all in our system. What does work are people that have good ideas. You'll put them in a room, you lock the door, give them coffee, turn off the air conditioning, you don't let them out until they get the job done. That's my way of doing it. So I believe this is our home, this is our community, and I will work with everyone to make sure that we get the job done. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ryerson.
Ladies and gentlemen, I agree with the congressman. A 10% flat tax option for federal taxpayers can't be more specific to put money in the pockets of the less than 50% of Americans that'll come spend it on the beaches of Broward and Palm Beach County, the 22nd District. Those folks need the same stimulus that everybody else has gotten that's from the corporate world. As a Democrat, and that's a Democrat, folks, we need to put the money in the individual's pockets. I want to talk a little bit about myself and then close my remarks with you. I live in the 22nd District. Not everybody at this table does. And I have lived on the Intercoastal since 1993. I drove the electric car, the old RAV4. You might remember the electric car candidate from 2008. I achieved 1 out of 5 votes against my opponent, the current congressman, without any radio or TV. I had letters written to me within days. I was exhausted, but they said, you need to run again because with the right media, you win the election for the 22nd District. That's why I'm in the race again this time. I have an electric sailboat now. I don't have an electric car anymore. I'm for solar energy and all those good things. As my opponent suggested we didn't talk about that, I thought that was pretty obvious since we're on the sunny beaches. I just want to close by saying, if you would kindly go to browardpalmbeaches.com, and if you would go home tonight, and after you see that website, if you got a neighbor on the Gulf Ocean Mile, you got neighbors in the community that are Democrats, that are not happy, and we know they're not. I've been out there. Ask them, give them a ride, tell them to get to the polls and vote in the primary. Because you need a dedicated Air Force veteran, unlike my possible Republican opponent, that wants to bring the troops home, has defended and recognized that we need a victory in the Middle East Day, and that has been achieved. The mission's been achieved. The suicide rate's 27 in July. We need to bring the troops home. Thank you very much for your opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you.